Hi, this is Shubham Tiwari, and I welcome you to the Sales Panel discussions where we speak with experts in B2B marketing, SaaS marketing, ABM, and revenue operations. At Sales Panel, we help businesses qualify their inbound traffic and help them understand what is an opportunity for them. It consists of helping them score leads and visitors using our real time scoring models and helping them track the target accounts on the website. Now, moving ahead with today's episode, our guest today is a number crunching marketer with a knack for leveraging content to generate demand for B2B SaaS products. With a total work experience of over 6 years spanning across sales, inbound marketing, and product marketing, he has been a long-time advocate and an enabler of collaboration between cross-functional teams. He's a product marketer at Razorpay and is also the co-founder of one of the biggest and the most thriving communities of SaaS marketers, which is read as S11S without any space and also pronounced as S11S. Shafique Gajdhar, welcome to Sales Panel.
Hey, thank you for having me.
It's great to have you. So, Shafique, let's begin with your day-to-day product marketing operations at Razorpay. What does it look like?
So just to give you an overview, I am like the product marketing person with the partnership pod at Razorpay. When I say the partnership pod, it is essentially a distribution channel for us, and it contributes significantly to the merchant acquisition part of it, attracting a lot of different kinds of companies from enterprise to single person run businesses. So on one side of the spectrum, you have the likes of Shopify, Wix, WooCommerce, Amazon AWS. On the other side, you have small time web developers who are referring Razorpay products, and they sign up for the partner program, right? My role is to enable the sales team create new messaging and get insights on newer and existing partner segments, own the GTM of new product or feature launches, conduct user interviews, competition mapping, market research, and more. Typically, my day goes in talking to multiple stakeholders, driving alignment, and completing GTM activities, ideating campaigns, plus looking at a bunch of data around the entire funnel, starting from acquisition to retention. So yeah, that's about it.
Right.
Okay, so you have worked in companies like CleverTap, Carix, and now also Razorpay. So as you switch companies, like for example, CleverTap is a global company, Razorpay is focused towards Indian enterprises. So what are the common things in product marketing that didn't change for you as you switched companies, and also how did you transition through changing goals in these companies?
Got it. Good that you asked that question and framed it that way, because uh, product marketing in different companies is done differently, and there is a huge variation. So you can have a early stage startup hiring a product marketer, and the role can be of a marketing generalist, but they are called as a product marketer. Across my experience in product marketing, so I transitioned from content marketing to product marketing when I joined CleverTap. CleverTap was into selling to marketers. It's a martech tool, and it had a global TAM, right?
Right.
Then I moved to Carix. Carix is a CPaaS company which had a lot of API-based point solutions for SMS, email, voice, and other things, right? And the major market for Carix was essentially India. And same goes with Razorpay, but it's not a marketing focused product. It's a fintech product, and it has very product portfolio that starts from payment gateway, then goes into Razorpay X, which is new banking part of it, and then has with Razorpay Capital, and we've made some acquisitions over the years, right? So it's a broad horizon of products that we have, help customers, which help our customers with their money movement, right? So across these, the user persona has changed, the demographic has changed. Carix and Razorpay majorly focused on Indian businesses. CleverTap had a truly global product. Like I said before, the fundamentals remain the same for product marketing, but you need to calibrate the strategy based on the market persona and the product. I'll give you a quick example of this. Like at Clevertap, we focus on expanding in new markets. From my experience, I can refer to the time that we were trying to expand into the Southeast Asia market and European market. The messaging differed for each of these markets. Like for the same product, we would lead with email, SMS in Southeast Asia, as the market is fairly nascent for MarTech there, and talk about advanced segmentations, analytics capabilities like psychographic segmentation in Europe or Australia, New Zealand market, right? This wasn't the case at Carix and is not a case at Razorpay, as the two companies focus on the India market.
Okay, interesting. So, with this new approach to revenue marketing, the current paradigm, so marketers are trying to connect their revenues with their marketing efforts. So, how does a product marketing team or a product marketer define KPIs? Especially like you said, it's different for marketers who are in 0 to 1 marketing in early stage startups and for established companies like Razorpay. So, how does a product marketer define KPIs and how can they be connected to the end results?
Product marketing has been and continues to face an identity crisis. So before I delve into the B2B marketing part of it, I just wanted to, take from your question and just expand on it. So people ask what product marketing does, and then what are the KPIs. So there are different levels to it, and it's a very gray area. It's not black and white as you would have for sales, right? Whether did you bring in customers, the revenue hit the bank or not, the money hit the bank or not, it's very black and white there. Here it's a lot more of a gray area. To answer the first part of your question, like about B2B marketing and the revenue marketing, and the change in the entire paradigm. So I think B2B marketing have come closer to revenue. It started with influencing the pipeline via account-based marketing, inside sales, SDRs, reporting into marketing teams. I think this is a result of poor attribution of marketing activities. So since revenue is the ultimate goal, it is easier to show ROI by signing up for marketing influence revenue than to just say, okay, we did some brand campaign which has no attribution, or you can't really say pinpoint and tell, okay, after spending so much money and getting so much eyeballs on the campaign, you got as much of signups, downloads, or customers, right? This also makes marketers do the job of sales, but without being comped or for it with respect to commissions or compensation, right? So this basically goes without saying. One of my sales counterparts in the last organization that I used to work with used to say that marketers are essentially the poorer cousins of sales. And that essentially has become truer because marketing has come down the funnel and started to sign up for revenue and basically stand shoulder to shoulder with sales. Coming to the PMM part of it, as I said before, PMMs have been facing identity crisis. The role varies from company to company. Some companies call marketing generalists PMMs. For product marketers, also KPIs largely differ based on the model that the company follows. So let's say if you have a self-serve low ACV SaaS model, right? There the KPI would be more around the entire funnel. So the PMM can essentially own the entire funnel and say, okay, you basically own the conversions from top of the funnel to bottom of the funnel, and hence revenue. And there is more control for the PMM to have on the low ACV and self-serve side of things. But as you go up market, and when you're selling to, let's say, enterprise companies and enterprise SaaS, there is higher ACV, there are longer sales cycles, there is sales intervention required to be able to sell and bring customers on board. The KPIs for PMM are basically secondary metrics which impact revenue in some way or the other, which is around, okay, probably reduction in sales cycles, upsell opportunities, cross-sell opportunities, and more of sales enablement, which have like qualitative metrics around, okay, is sales satisfied, how effective was messaging around a particular target segment, and things around that, right? So on one side you have self-serve, on the other side you have enterprise, and depending upon where you sit in, you basically take those KPIs. On the self-serve side, you are more responsible towards revenue because you have that control as a PMM. On the enterprise side, you probably don't, and hence you have secondary metrics around that.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, I think another thing that's coming out of product marketing and mostly product-led growth is that many companies, the SaaS companies, they all have a self-serve model and they have an enterprise model too. Like if you see companies like HubSpot or maybe Salesforce, pretty sure they have a lower tier plans that customers would directly sign up, and that they have also enterprise plans going in thousands of dollars a month. So in that regard, does the product marketing set up this lead routing, and like for self-serve they have this different KPIs, and also for enterprise deals they have these different KPIs at the same time?
So in my experience, after talking to a lot of product marketers who work in different setups, what I've realized is from an outsider's vantage point, we may think that HubSpot has a self-serve module and has a enterprise module as well. But if you talk to people who work in the company, you would realize that for every such module, there is a different team which is focused on driving those things for the company as a whole, right?
Yeah.
So it's not that you probably have a horizontal product marketing function, but within that horizontal function there are specific roles defined as PMMs working on, let's say, to improve the self-serve funnel. Then there is the mid-market funnel, then there is the completely sales intervention funnel, which is on the enterprise side. And then you have different KPIs for these people within the product marketing function itself. And part of it is uh, because we see from an outsider's point of view, we think, okay, there has to be a common metric around this. But I, in my experience, after talking to people, I haven't seen that at all.
Okay, that is very interesting. So, like even in maybe in smaller SaaS companies that also have this type of models, do you think like they have separate teams, or like one team that's doing both sides?
I don't think smaller SaaS companies have that complicated structure as such.
Yes.
And since you are, let's say, in the 0 to 1 phase wherein you are trying to prove PMF, it's the goal of every marketer in the team to assist in making that happen. And there, the end goal is to bring revenue and customers on board. So I don't think a good demarcation of activity or KPIs is required in 0 to 1 stage, because you have one singular goal, which is the North Star metric, to bring customers and prove PMF at the time, and you work towards that. As you go further, you basically break these KPIs down and say, okay, break that North Star metric down and say, okay, marketing will help develop the top of the funnel. Then bottom of the funnel will be helped by sales converting those leads that marketing gets, and do some of the outbound activity if at all the outbound is a channel for the product. And then you have the product team helping in adoption metrics, saying, okay, we have got about 100 users on board, 100 customers on board. Right now the retention metrics look like X% of retention and Y% of churn. We have to increase from X to 1.2X in the next quarter, and so on and so forth, right? So as you hit that PMF and do those things, you start to break these KPIs down. But initially, it's I think it's a North Star metric that matters.
Interesting. Interesting. So, Shubham, I think you can take over.
Yes. Shafiq, I mean, speaking about your journey, your evolution has been, from being a product strategist, as you mentioned, content strategist,
Mhm.
content marketer, to now, product marketing manager. So can you tell us, how did you make this shift? How did you transform? Because there may be some, people who are looking at you to replicate, in their own journey.
Got it. So this takes me back to my early days in SaaS. As a content marketer, I worked within the confines of the marketing team. The only interaction I had outside of marketing team was with the customer success team, because I also used to own the customer marketing bit, being a content strategist, because customer marketing at that time was not a role per se. In 2015, I'm referring to like 7 years back, 6 years back from now. So beyond that, it was a role that was limited to the marketing team. The change I saw it after that was to have the exposure to talk to multiple stakeholders, and PMM was a new and upcoming role at the time. So I read about it and decided to interview at leading SaaS companies. Uh, as it turned out, like after a couple of months of interviewing, I converted two companies and decided to join CleverTap. One of the most interesting bits I have appreciated as a PMM is it gives you a holistic view of the product, right? A marketer views the same product differently than the product manager who built it, right? And the customer success person who actually deals with bugs and queries looks at it from a different lens. Then you have a salesperson who takes the product out in the market, gives a demo, and gets feedback, right? And all of these people have a different perspective of the same thing, which is the product that you're trying to sell, you're trying to build, right? And these perspectives make PMM worth the pain it comes with. When I say pain, because as I said, it's a role that has identity crisis. You got to do a lot of different activities. You have to wear a lot of different multiple hats to succeed as a PMM. And a lot of times it's more about not even having authority over somebody to make them do your thing. So let's say you are probably part of a different team, and you have to have that influence over them without having the authority to make them do the thing that you want them to do, right? And this is like a daily challenge for a PMM. So these perspectives make it worth, like, talking to these different people and the entire stakeholder management thing.
Interesting. So, at Reserve, when we talked earlier on Slack, you mentioned that you previously reported to marketing, now you report to product leadership. So, can you tell us more about this shift? How did that happen?
Yeah, so multiple companies operate differently. Like when we were having that conversation on Slack
Mhm.
in the community, um, I was referring to my time at largely CleverTap and Garrix, because I was part of the marketing orgs there. And there the KRAs for PMMs would more revolve around demand generation. And, if you're doing a product launch, how many leads did you get? How many
Mhm.
customers signed up? Or how many more of our existing customers started using a new feature that we launched, right? These are
Mhm.
all more of the marketing side of metrics, and not product side of metrics. And when I joined Razorpay lately, I this particular role, it belongs to the product team. So I am part of the platform product team, and within the platform product team, there is the partnerships part, which I belong to. And I would say it's a hot topic of debate, wherein you can see, if you search on LinkedIn, you would see people making arguments around why PMM should report into marketing, or why PMM should report into the product org. And I think there are pros and cons to these both these things. Um, So I would briefly talk about marketing, like PMM being part of the marketing org and the positives of it. So you have more control over GTM execution because you're sitting with the same folks who will, execute the things for you. So let's say if you plan a GTM and you have the entire calendar, you have a bunch of activities around social media, blog post that has to go live, and a video needs to be made, right? So all
Yeah.
of this can be a lot more smoother when you're part of uh, the marketing org, because you are essentially sitting with these folks day in and day out, and you have some level of connection and some level of authority, or if that may be the case. It is also easier for you to experiment with campaigns, because you are probably sitting with them and you have more control on that front as well, like analyzing the data and seeing, okay, if this messaging did not work in the first 10 days, you probably change that messaging and or the creative in itself, and try something else. You have a better focus on the creative side of the PMM bit, wherein you try different side, try different bits in when it comes to creative or messaging, these things. And it is easier to own launch related and scaling GTM efforts post launch after developing the sales playbook. So what essentially happens is, with a product launch or a feature launch, you basically take it from beta to general availability and develop a sales playbook and give it to the marketing org to run it by themselves afterwards, right? So you basically, after the general availability, you have a sales playbook defined. So for this particular segment, this messaging works, and go and repeat this for more of such people from this segment who we have not reached so far, right? That's a scaling bit. All of these things become easier when you are part of the marketing org. um, the pros for being part of the product org are, you're closer to the product, you're closer to the product managers, so you have better understanding of the product. The friction you would otherwise have with product managers while working with them goes away. So essentially you are part of their team, and you become like a close buddies, and that way it helps you understand the product and have some influence over the product strategy, product roadmap. It is easier for you to loop back feedback on product than it is when you're part of the marketing org. So let's say the PMM does a project around understanding the user persona, talks to customers, and has to route back that feedback to the product team. So the PMM has more influence being part of the product org than as the same activity would have been done as the PMM being part of the marketing org. And here it is also easier to own the product adoption related metrics. So let's say if you have a new feature that is going to have a huge impact on the existing customers, and you launch that feature, take it to the market, do a GTM. After that, if you want to focus on within product adoption and stuff, metrics around that, it becomes a lot more easier and smoother on that front.
Okay, interesting. So, like in a general case, like if it was a communication between product team and marketing team, there's always friction. Like product teams have their own viewpoints, and marketers, they are just marketing, and they have another viewpoint. So you are saying that if you are part of the product team as a product marketer, you have a more smooth communication with them. Plus, you have also authority on like new features, like how to market them, and you also get this data in advance, I'm guessing.
Yes. To add to your bit,
Yeah.
with product marketing reporting into product, uh, it's also easier for the marketing person to get involved in the ideation phase of the product that we are going to launch or we're building at the moment, right? A lot of times when PMMs are part of the marketing org, it so happens that the product manager is responsible to put the product on the shelf, and PMM is supposed to pick that product and take it to the market. right? So the development has already happened. The user research has already happened. The PRD has already been written in that case. With the PMM being part of the product org, it's essentially ever since the PRD research has begun and the PRD has been, reviewed, or first draft comes of first draft of the PRD comes your way, you have some level of influence there, and you basically get to work closely in the product development uh, life cycle stages itself, rather than waiting for the product to be developed, and probably it is when it is in the testing phase, then pre-PMM being involved. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. So, yeah, on the other hand, like if you're in marketing, they understand marketing better, so it's kind of cool. But yeah, as you said, pros and cons on both sides, and
Yeah, so
makes sense.
I'm tasting the flavor here as well, like
Yeah,
and this is a different ball game for me as well, because a lot of these things I was in my previous experience while part of marketing teams as a PMM, I got to see these things but from a distance.
yeah,
So be it PRD being written or reviewed, and product roadmap, things like prioritization, things like the frameworks that they follow, right?
yeah,
Right now, I am imbibed and very much involved in that process of strategizing, or the roadmap being decided for the quarter, what we do for the next financial year, and all these bits around product adoption, the entire development cycle, right?
yeah,
And this is something that I have got to the appreciation of right now, because it is a difference. There is a difference between seeing it from a distance than being part of it as one team, right?
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So now we are going to our favorite bits for this interview. We will talk
Yeah.
about S11S.
Yes. So, Shafiq, I mean, as I said at the very beginning, that you
Yeah.
have co-founded this SaaS marketers community called S11S. So, please tell us, how did this community come to life? And first of all, the name. How did you come up with this name? What is the story behind it?
Sure. So it was May 2021. Clubhouse opened for Android at the time, and we decided
Yeah.
to try it, right? So we hosted a room that got a good response, with about 30-40 people joining in the first room, when we did not do any promotions on LinkedIn of any thought, right? And a lot of SaaS marketers joined in. They gave us feedback that we should do it, keep doing it week on week. Um, it became like a thing, and we were doing it on a Saturday, so we coined it as SaaS Saturdays, and it was just out of the blue, right? SaaS Saturdays became a thing. We would actually meet week on week at 5 p.m. on Clubhouse, and the same set of people and new people would join in and have a conversation there. And we would typically do it at 5 p.m. On a Saturday. After over 15, 17 sessions, first on Clubhouse, and then we moved from Clubhouse to Zoom to enable that two-way conversation and recording like features. We moved to Zoom. We took a pause. All this while we had a sponsor as well, who sponsored us. So that also kept us going and keep doing these session. After taking the pause, we basically listened to our listeners, and at that time, Clubhouse actually saw a decline in terms of the active users it had on the app. So Twitter Spaces was doing fine, and we thought, okay, between doing deep dive sessions versus just having conversations on Clubhouse in an audio format, what should we do? And we talked to our listeners and decided to launch the S11S community. So we happened to launch it in I think it was February, mid of February, and with the whole intention with S11 is to we want to make the game bigger for the Indian SaaS marketers and operators. The community is the exact place we now wish we had when we were starting off in SaaS marketing. So a lot of we get a lot of messages from early stage folks who have just started their careers in SaaS marketing, and they say things like, okay, this is the exact place that we wanted to be in. We are able to solve our doubts. We are able to solve and get our doubts cleared. We are able to get job opportunities and guidance from mentors. A lot of connections have organically built. And to tell you about more about the user acquisition bit of it, like we did not do any paid marketing, nothing at all. It's just pure play our own network, wherein we just use LinkedIn to get followers on the S11S LinkedIn page, and used our own personal network to get about close to 1,000 people on the Slack community. So, and this is in the last 6 weeks. That is the only time frame that we have. And even if you go on the you both are part of the community there, and you would see that all of it is user generated content, right? It's not promotional. There is no company
Yeah.
doing these things, right? And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, I love S11S. By the way, it's great. I think I joined it around last week or the week before that, and there are a few posts that are just amazing. So, coming to my question, creating a community or building a network is a top priority for many, but it's difficult to create one in reality when it comes to ground reality. So, what would you suggest to individuals or businesses who are trying to create one around their niche, and like if they don't have an existing network of people, how do they get started and how do they build the community?
I think most of it is people get lost with the end goal that they have in mind,
Yeah.
right? So when you are starting off, you have this ideal state that you would be after, let's say, a month, a year, or 3 years down the line, and you become obsessed over that particular hitting that number, or getting that revenue, getting that number of users on the community in this aspect, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to achieve that number, people resort to using a lot of hacks which are probably inorganic and not sustainable in the long run. My suggestion is to start with an end result in mind, but don't obsess over it.
Mm-hmm.
And what you should focus on is the value you offer to your target audience, your network, your community. If you have anything of value, they will stay. um, if you are offering that value, they will come back. Retention will be sorted. Your daily active users, your weekly active users, uh, those numbers will automatically be there. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of focusing on ramping up from 0 to, let's say, 10,000 users in a Slack community, you should actually focus on how many ever users that you have attracted in the first 30 days. How do you give them the value that they signed up to the community for? And if you are providing that value, the everything else will follow. With S11S, the value we deliver is the user generated content, the questions getting answered within minutes, mentors meeting mentees, job seekers finding job opportunities, and all of this is organic, as I said before. And this is in a highly trust environment which you wouldn't find outside.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond this, we also do monthly deep dive sessions, and soon would be doing our physical meetup in Bangalore, with plans to expanding to other cities in future. So far, we've seen tremendous response. We have close to 1,000 members in our community, as I said,
Mm-hmm.
and we didn't spend a single penny in acquiring these users. It is mainly driven by referrals, word of mouth, and even community members posting it out on LinkedIn saying, okay, I'm part of this community, right? So there are
Yeah.
these word of mouth or referral loops working in our favor, which is helping us attract these net new users.
Interesting. So another question that I have is that once you decide you want to start a community, so how do you choose where to host a community? Like there are many platforms. So you can host, if you're a company, you can just host it on your website, create a forum, or maybe you can do Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, and like S11S, you can have it on Slack. So there are several options, and each has their own problems and merits and demerits. So how does one choose? What are the recommendations?
Actually, a good question. But for us, Slack was a kind of a slam dunk choice
Okay.
because that was like the number one priority for us. And of course, there are better alternatives available in the market today than 5 years back. So there
Yeah.
is something like Circles, which is designed to host a community and do several things with that community, right? So it gives a bunch of cool features for you to engage with the community, right? Then
Yeah.
there is Telegram, Discord, and even a WhatsApp group for that matter. And the
Yeah.
ones that you mentioned, Facebook groups and LinkedIn groups, are already there, right? We decided to go with what's Slack because of the familiarity and it being the choice of messaging app most companies out there already use. So it is just a matter of moving between workplaces for users to sign into S11S, and they're already familiar with what Slack has to offer. They are familiar with all the features. They use it for work. So after talking to our user base, we also get to hear that they move between workspaces just to chill out. So let's say you have
Yeah.
worked for 4 5 hours, and just after your lunch break, you would hop in from your workspace in Slack to the S11S community workspace and just read the conversation that are happening, play a game of trivia
Mhm.
or stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Just to take that 10-minute, 15-minute break during the day. That wouldn't be the case if we had chosen any other platform,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So for us, it was a very easy choice, and frankly, we did not really think and ponder about it as much because we are not really charging users or making money from this. It's essentially for the community at the moment. Um, and other things like other products like Circle would have costed us something.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it depends on, like, it also depends on what type of community you are building. Like, for example, if I have a product community, product focused community,
Mhm.
obviously people are not going to sign up to Slack and just, open the Slack workspace of this particular product. In that case, like maybe a Facebook group where when new posts show up, it just shows up on your feed. So in that way, you do not have to open the community to see the posts, and it makes sense that way. So might be depending on which community, what type of community you are creating, and that way you choose the
It also
hosting
matters
platform. Yeah.
where your user persona,
Yeah.
like your target audience, hangs out the most.
Yeah.
So there are communities for, let's say, something around conversion rate optimization. I'm forgetting
Yeah.
the name of the community, but it has like 100,000 users on Slack. Sorry, Facebook, in a Facebook group,
Yeah.
and it started like a few years back. People hang out in on used to hang out and log in into Facebook at the time, and they've been doing it phenomenally well with that community, and they've hosted it on Facebook. It works for them.
Yeah, I think for B2B it's slightly difficult. Like most of your personas, the people you target or people you want to hang out with are on LinkedIn. But on my personal experience, I barely see groups on my feed. So if I'm not actively browsing the group, it would just be lost, I think. So Facebook works that way. So maybe you have to bring your customer profile or your community profile
No,
and
it
just,
makes sense if they are already there, and
yeah,
then you make that choice.
yeah,
So the whole point is to make it simpler for the user to first sign in and then have show up regularly on the
yeah,
community.
yeah. Yeah, so and talking about that, how do you keep a community from dying? Like, how do you keep it active, people participating, and the community growing overall? Like, if people stop participating, they won't come to S11S workspace after their lunch, or if it was not active. So, what, like, are there any steps then people that community managers can take to? keep the community active and growing?
Sure. The role of community managers is really important, and we, as the four co-founders here with S11S, play that part amongst ourselves in, you know, uh, triggering a conversation or adding relevant folks to a conversation when a question is asked, right? So these things, in addition to things like engagement activities like playing a game of trivia, uh, enabling something like an anonymous channel wherein if people do not really want to say something with their name on it, they should be able to do that. um, um, then we did enable something like random coffees wherein people get introduced to different newer folks, and between themselves they can decide to connect on Zoom, meet over a coffee, or just have random conversation on Slack DM, whichever whatever they like, right? So these are the kind of activities that you as a catalyst can do for the community, and the community managers need to act as I said, like catalysts to propel these conversations forward. With terms of other things beyond beyond the Slack community, we also use events to keep users from abandoning the community, because it's a deep dive session, and if you're spending 90 minutes, half of it is going to be more or less answering questions of users, and you wouldn't see it in a regular webinar that happens, right? And it's a closed group session, so we don't even use Zoom webinars. We use something like this, right? A Zoom call wherein everybody can unmute themselves and start speaking whenever they like, right? Although it is moderated, the first 20-25 minutes we give it to the guest speaker to talk about their experiences, and then cumulatively open up subsequently open up the questions for the users to ask and interact with the guest speakers and us. So these kind of things, smaller roundtables followed by physical event that we are trying out for the first time in a few days from now in Bangalore. So these are the kind of things that we are doing. I particularly don't have much experience on how other folks do community management, but these are the kind of things that are working for us.
Interesting.
So, would you like to nominate a few members from the S11S for our show?
You can talk to Siddharth, Rohit. You already have connected with Chirayu.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, Siddharth and Rohit would be good for this.
Wonderful.
Interesting.
Shafique Gajdhar, thank you so much. You have been quite generous with your time. Thanks again.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Thanks. And thanks to our audience for sticking with us. We'll see you in the next episode of the Sales Panel discussions very soon. Thank you.